Hey everyone, how's everyone doing today? Today we are doing an episode of Transformation Time. Our guest speaker, this is a show where our guest speaker, is MarkSmith, will come on and he'll basically be talking to us about his personal development journey and mindset shifts as a real estate investor and entrepreneur. So it's always exciting to see people's journeys and how they get to where they are. So I can see that Mark's here. So give me a minute. Let me invite him in. Oh, I don't know. Okay, there we go. Hey, Mark, how have you been?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. Yourself?
Doing fantastic.
It's been a long time since I feel like we've spoken, so it'll be nice to catch up in the show, kind of a thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. So let's start with just giving the viewers a little bit, just tell people where you are right now in your uh, real estate entrepreneur journey.
Yeah, it's like many, it's like it never feels like it's enough, but we have to reflect and take grace and gratitude into what we've been able to do till now. So we have been grateful. I have an amazing business partner, and what we've been able to achieve is it's without its struggle, right? There's definitely struggle and challenges. But with picking up apartments, to doing multiple new builds, multiple flips on the go. It's been quite the 2021, that's for sure.
Yeah, you guys have done a lot of things. So let's now go back into time and just even understand what made you even think about getting into real estate. Like, how did that even come into your mind and your vision of to start investing in real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I've always thought about being in real estate investing. I've had people tell me since I was in my early 20s to get into real estate investing, and I never did actually. And I think one of it was, well, there was definitely a mindset piece to it, but number two is, I just saw that there was a rocky road ahead of me, and with an impending divorce and that kind of stuff, and I just said I just don't want to get in this mix and so forth. And it wasn't until I'd say, my marriage breakdown happening and so forth, when I saw my whole net worth turn upside down on me. And I remember sitting on the sofa and just sitting there and just realized, like, part of my expression, like, holy fuck, what am I going to do here? And at that point, I decided to get into real estate investing because real estate investing is, of course, a sure way to really raise your net worth. Or one of the ways, I should say, sure way, one of the ways, if done correctly. But unfortunately, what happened, Deanna, I didn't have the education. I was really relying on either whether it be YouTube or whatever, or word of mouth. So I really thought there's really two ways to do real estate investing. Number one was you just be a landlord. Didn't even know the term buy and hold, just thought you're a landlord. Or two was to do a flip. And my ideology of a flip was what you see on TV, where they would have flipped a whole house in 24 hours, and a guy comes out with a megaphone saying, "Here's your new home." Furthest from the truth. And that was really my first thing, is just understanding that I had to get into real estate investing, and then from there having to take action. And that's basically where this whole paradigm shift happened in my trajectory of my life.
Mhm. That's awesome, and that's great that. But what exactly? So now we understood that like your divorce kind of really made you reflect on like what you needed to do. But was there like a book or a show or something that made you say, "Hey, like real estate is the avenue," and for example, not something else?
No, you know what? I read Rich Dad Poor Dad back in, like, I think it was like 2000 or something like that. Like, but again, it didn't have the value it has placed on me today. You got to be in that right. It's like reading a book, right? Like, you can read a book today, it doesn't mean anything, but you pick up that book, it could be a period in your life and that kind of stuff. You pick it up again, it's like, wow, where the hell was this thing? And that's what
Mm-hmm.
happened to me. So, getting back in front of that, getting in the right rooms and that kind of stuff just really changed my focus. And I knew real estate investing, and it was just like, it was like that. It was like cheap crack. You get your first hit and you're like, oh, wait a second, this is not so bad. then you go, not that I've done cheap crack, but, or any crack for that matter. But, and it basically, I got the bug and and just started rinsing, repeating, rinse and repeating. And that was really what it came down to. And then I essentially hit a point, where the bank said, you can't do this anymore. My divorce bills were through the roof. There was a lot of stuff happening. And through that journey, I just knew that there was other answers out there, but I didn't even know what questions to ask myself, or even what questions to ask anybody that was. And that's when I made a decision to get a mentor. And that's really what it changed the trajectory of my business, trajectory of my mindset, and so forth. And it wasn't so much the real estate aspect that really changed the trajectory. It was actually getting in the right rooms, dropping my ego at the door, taking pride in being the dumbest person in the room. And I take pride in knowing that I've been able to work with multiple mentors. In fact, I had a call with one of my mentors this morning at 6 o'clock in the morning our time because he's out in Australia. And it just, grounds me, allows me to think outside the box, really to stay focused. Because that's the one thing that no one really talks about with real estate investing is there's a lot of people out there, maybe some of those who are watching and listening right now, it's like they're out there and they're wanting to flex. Oh, look how many doors I have. Look at what I have. And I tell people all the time is like, would you want one door that's cash flowing $10,000 a month, or would you want to have 100 doors that are cash flowing minus $20,000 a month? Like, just put this in perspective. Like, you're a business owner now. You're an entrepreneur. Like, you can't be stupid with this. And shit's going to happen. As a real estate investor, stuff's going to happen. You're going to hit, no pun intended, you're going to hit walls. You can have surprises in your projects. And that's just the real estate aspect. And this is the one thing that, and I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer here, but shit's going to happen in people's lives as well. COVID is a great example of this. People are going to lose their jobs. Marital breakdown is going to happen. So how many investors are watching this right now and saying, oh yeah, that's great. I got 100 doors, none of my own money, but your marriage is on the rocks. And if you continue, if you don't put the energy into that, guess what? You're going to be another statistic of 51% where your marriage is going to fail. And half of that's going to be gone. And you're going to have to pay all these different things. You're going to have enormous legal bills. Are you mentally prepared for this? Or someone in your family gets ill. Are you prepared for this? Anything can happen. And this is why mindset is so important. This is why I take pride in calling myself a mindset investor. I focus on what I call the $1 billion mindset. I'm not a billionaire yet, but I focus on equipping myself to become that, to have that billionaire mindset, because it's about going against the grain and doing the deep work that 99.9% of the people aren't going to put in, because they're too focused on the spreadsheet, they're too focused on the deal, they're too focused on what the cash flow is, and not focusing on themselves. And I tell people all the time that the mindset shift one has to have as a real estate investor is that you are the asset, not the property. But I'm looking for a JV partner, or I'm looking for, I'm raising capital. They're looking at me as the asset, not the property. The property is simply the insurance.
100%.
And it frustrates me. It frustrates me when I'm talking to people. And it's like, you can have whatever, but they're so dense because they haven't put in that work. And when I'm interviewing potential partners and that kind of stuff, because it's an interview, every conversation is an interview. And I tell myself, I don't know, that doesn't seem like the right partner I want to have in my business, because there's a recipe for disaster that's happening, but they're not looking at direction because they haven't invested in themselves. So,
yeah.
And so, Deanna, one of the things for me is, like, I just say it the way it is. I'm not here to sugarcoat, and I've seen a lot. I've experienced a lot, whether it be in my personal life, whether it be with JV partners, whether it be in real estate investing, whether it be in having a corporate level job. Shit happens. One of the examples I use all the time is Michael Phelps, the most celebrated Olympian there is ever. You put him in a swimming pool, he can drown. And people say, no way, Michael Phelps can't drown. Yes, he can drown. He's a human being and he can drown in a swimming pool. But he's been equipped to prevent or mitigate that risk. If someone wants to become a real estate investor, what are they doing to mitigate the risk of themselves drowning?
100%. Completely agree. And just going back to a couple of things, because you said a couple of really good things, is for example, when you're getting into what even got you let's say investing, because we were both in the same uh we had both the same mentorship, and for you, for example, was it a struggle to mentally think about the amount of money that you were investing into getting a mentor, like the very first time? Was that kind of a mental struggle, or was that what, like, didn't even matter, ready to go, was that like a mindset shift for you?
That's a great question. So the mastermind that we were part of, I had already joined another mastermind prior to that. So I'd already made that initial investment into myself. So it was the shock value wasn't there. And in fact, I paid more for a previous mastermind than I joined the one that we were in.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, what I looked at it as is I don't have time. No one has time. I don't care what anybody says. There's no, part of my expression, there's no fucking time left. Every second goes by, you can't get that time back. And what I look at when I look at mentorship or getting into rooms, like right now, I look at how many mentors I have, and I look at it as I'm compressing time. I'm buying my time by getting a mentor, is what I'm doing. Because and how does one look for the right mentor? Is you want to almost emulate wherever they're doing. You want to see yourself, hey, where they are, and that's where I want to go. Not every mentor is going to be right for someone. It's a risk you're going to take. You may join a mastermind, and then 1 month in, it's like, oh shit, what did I spend my money on? And
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of stuff. And that's going to happen. It's happened to me in the past. Um, but I've been blessed in that the majority of my mentors, it's actually worked out very well because, some mentorship programs may cost you $20,000. They may be able to answer one question in that short period of time that will allow you to make $21,000. Well, you just made your money back,
Yeah,
right? You just made
100%.
your money back, and it's the big picture that I tell people. So it was tough early on because I'm like, hey, you know what? How do I do this? But then it came down to, because it was a mindset shift in that people, when they go to university or they go to college, they take out a student loan, and they don't even think twice about it. My student loan lasted longer than my career, and I was a healthcare professional. So I see it as, if you're investing in yourself and you have the ability to get a mentor that actually fits with where you want to be and there's alignment, think of it as you're getting a student loan, get a line, get a loan, whatever it is, and think of that as investment for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When I see
100%.
people,
And most likely you're probably paying it back so much faster than you did in school.
well,
Like I paid off like for me, the mentor, like it was paid off within a year. It's
absolutely.
like it's a very different type of education. It's a very action-oriented type of education, right? Like in school, it's very study, study, study. You don't think like you don't. I mean, unless if you did co-op, but it's not like it's a different level, right? That's very action-oriented. University or college is you study and then afterwards you go. And to be honest, what you studied usually isn't even what you actually do in the job force. Like once you get in it, it's you probably like 10% of it is what you actually apply. Or even a lot of people are, to be honest, so confused on what they want to do that they kind of just pick something and then afterwards they're like, oh, I didn't even like this, and you just kind of your trajectory completely changes.
Sure. And the big thing about finding the right groups to be in is not just from the educational standpoint, because you can get that education on YouTube.
Hmm.
It's the truth.
Yeah,
What
100%. Like
what
it's
you
the
need,
community.
it's the community, and the community brings a high level of accountability. And this is
Hmm.
what people are missing in their lives. They're missing a high level of accountability because a lot of people have their hand out and they're entitled. I'm born, I'm a millennial, I'm whatever, I'm 40 years old. It's COVID. I want my serve checks. I mean, everybody has their hand up. When you're getting into these rooms, no one wants a weak link. So there has to be a high level of accountability.
Hmm.
That's what it comes down
100%.
to. I mean, I had a call this morning for 2 hours, one of my mentors, like I said, out of Australia, and I got my ass handed to me.
Hmm.
But you know what? That's what I'm paying for.
Exactly.
That's what I'm paying for. It's almost sadistic. I'm paying people to beat me up and put me in pain so I can get the pleasure later on. And that's what I'm doing with these mentorship groups is it's being held accountable.
100%. And yeah, and the community, even the other thing where I feel like when you get into these mentorships is the community becomes so helpful also even though in the way of like support, like you may not even be partners, but you're all going through the same type of stresses or similar stresses. And it's a very, if you get into the right communities, obviously you support each other too. You can talk about things and understand each other because we're all entrepreneurs, we're all real estate investors, and a lot of us are going through the same type of issues, problems, growth spurt issues, whatever it is. Like we go through the same thing, and you also have that support too, which is really important. So it's like not only the mentor, but like exactly you said, the community is so important because you're there to everyone uplifts each other. If that's obviously like the mentor is creating that kind of environment.
Well, and that's what's critical, right? And that is the fundamental thing. It depends on the environment and what's actually being created. The next thing as well that's so important is, so, I come in and I pride myself on being a mindset investor. That's my thing. Like I've made a proclamation I'm going to invest $1 million into my mindset. I have multiple mentors all over the world, multiple coaches all over the world. There's this emphasis. So everybody talks about mind, body, spirit, right? So body is the capsule, right? Which is our heart, which we talk about the why. So there's a why exercise and that kind of stuff. But what I found, and I was talking to a few people about this, is you can focus. Everybody can focus on mindset. There's a fixed mindset, there's a growth mindset. And that's a great book by Carol Dweck. But then you have your body, which is encompassing your why or your heart and that kind of stuff. The superhighway between your heart and your mind, your why and your mind, is your spirit. A lot of people don't focus on their spirit. Most people's spirit is it's a gravel road with big ass potholes. This is something I learned along my journey, is that I've invested heavily in my mindset. I knew my why was and that kind of stuff, but there was nothing being done on my spirit. And so being in rooms and really talking about spirit, and I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about spirit, the human spirit. And really there's two elements I tell people that they can take control over, which is they can focus on gratitude. They can focus on grace. As one of my mentors says, you got to fill in the gaps with grace. And the second thing you have to do is forgiveness. And why those two are so powerful is you can be having the shitty ass day, but still find gratitude into something. And number two is finding forgiveness. Forgiveness is the ability to essentially forgive someone without them saying sorry to you.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're able to do that, you're able to now bring all those in alignment. Okay? And as one grows in their journey, whether they're buying crypto, whether they're buying NFTs, whether they're buying real estate, and so forth, the quicker you grow or the bigger you grow, you're going to face bigger problems you've never faced before. And what I tell people all the time is that when you're getting into a room, take pride in being the dumbest person in a room. If you end up having to be at the front of the room and you're in this program, you shouldn't be in that room unless your pride is telling you, hey, I like being on stage again. Well, you can talk about abundant mindset all you want, but you're still scarce because you want the limelight, you want the microphone and this kind of stuff. So I think it's very, very important that anytime you join a room, you want to push on a room for continued growth. But the moment you outgrow the room is the time you have to leave that room. It's like being at a party. Like they say, nothing good ever happens at a party after 12 o'clock. Yeah, imagine that. You stay at a party too long, you're not going to enjoy it anymore because you're not growing anymore. Mm-hmm. The next thing as well is also finding mentors that are investing in themselves. I take pride in all my mentors invest in themselves. They just don't say they are; they actually do, because I get the trickle down effect.
Yeah, and the amounts that they invest in themselves are so much more. Like it's funny because especially when you're starting to get into it, you get into this mode of like, oh my God, I'm spending so much money. But you're like, it's really not, because when you see your mentors and the amount that they spend, you're just like, oh my God, I'm so behind. I need to spend more. I need to spend more money. It's like I need to have more mentors or go into those bigger rooms where, like you said, like it's you realize how important it is to be the dumbest person in the room, and you kind of enjoy it because I feel like when you get into a room, you just like the creativity that comes out of the rooms and things that you've never heard of, or people, the way they bounce ideas, it just starts changing. Like the levels you just see, it just completely will change, and it's just fascinating to be like, oh my God, I never thought of that. Oh my God, you guys do this? Like I didn't even realize that that was a possibility, because it's just we're so you're growing, right? And it's just like you when you get into those bigger rooms, you just things happen that you're just kind of in shock of,
Sure.
sometimes.
Absolutely. And the key thing is, and so I tell everybody, we all like everything is a choice. Like the quality of one's life is going to be the quality of their decisions they make and the quality of the choices they make, right? Um, but one has to decide, are you going to conform or are you going to create? See, and this is why the mindset piece is so important and the spirit piece is so important, because when you're down in the dumps, you become more conforming, not
Mhm.
creating. You lose the ability to create. Like I said, shit's gonna happen. I don't give a fuck who you are. Sorry, my language, Yana. I don't care a shit who someone is. Life is gonna hit them.
Oh
Life is
yeah.
gonna hit them. Now we can't live in fear all the time, but life is gonna happen. So you need to best equip yourself.
hmm And as I would even add on to that, as entrepreneurs like you and I, where we're real estate investors and we're moving quicker, it hits a lot harder actually,
Sure.
because you buy one house, for example, and you go through your ups and downs.
Yeah.
But then, as a normal, like someone who doesn't do this as a job, maybe you're buying a house every 3 years. So your ups and downs are like within a 3 year span.
Sure.
Our ups and downs are like you're doing, let's say, 10 projects, and it gets squished still all into the few months that you're working on it, so you're like hitting these waves quickly, and like you're having to bounce back quickly and figure things out or go to your community, because it's just that you're going at a much higher, faster rate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what's going to happen, right? As we start growing and that kind of stuff, we want to take on more action. So, and it comes down to just making sure, like, and that's what I tell everybody is like, make sure are in complete alignment with what you want to be doing, making sure you have your mindset in check, making sure do your self audit. Like there's three things. I was talking to one of my other mentors, who's Tim Story. And so Tim is really this is amazing. Like, he's one of my mentors. He's my coach, just a great friend. And so, I mean, he's been interviewed by Oprah on the Oprah Winfrey Show. I mean, he's helped Kanye West deal with shit. He's helped, a lot of celebrities. Now, I don't say that because I'm a celebrity. No, I'm not a celebrity. Why did we hire Tim? Is because Tim has worked with people that are growing at fast rates and he has experience. And in last week I was on a call with him and we were talking because he was saying, okay, Mark, I have you on stage with me. We're gonna go to London. I want to have you on stage with me next December and this kind of stuff. And we're going to talk about what you've been through in the travesties and all the other stuff. And what are three things that you could tell someone? Number one is do a self audit. Like, check your freaking ego at the door. Like, unless, like, honestly, like, even if you think you're the most humble, like, check your ego at the door. Do a self audit. Do your mind, body, spirit, your family, your finances. Do the audit. Where are you? Are you happy with where you are? What's holding you back? Self-reflection is very, very important. Number two is one has to make a choice. People need to ask themselves this, do you prefer loneliness or do you prefer emptiness? People say, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Well, I'm going to say it again. Do you prefer emptiness or do you prefer loneliness? Before, I was the most popular guy, but I was empty. Now I prefer being lonely. Why? Because I'm filling in my own cup. Okay?
hmm
And by filling my own cup allows me to invest in myself. Okay? And the third thing is I tell people is they have to lean into the pain. Anything you do in life, you cannot do playing defense. You got to play offense. Championships are won by playing offense. And it's not about winning the game, it's about winning the championship. And why I say leaning into the pain? Just look at a boxing fight. Okay, if I used to box and you're against the ropes and this kind of stuff, and you're just taking a shot. it doesn't matter how strong your abs are, your obliques are, your ribs are, and that kind of stuff. Ultimately, you're going to go down. Okay? So you can go the distance, but if you want to take whatever obstacle is out of the way, you got to lean into the pain. So if you want to knock that fucker out, you're going to have to go and you're going to have to do a left upper hook. Right? And so whatever that is, right? And so you got to lean into the pain. It is going to be painful. But on the other side of our pain is our purpose. So when people are trying to figure out what the, like you get, I said this on one of my podcasts the other day, and I'm surprised I haven't got that much hate mail from this, is kids that go, these kids, and they finish high school, and they say, I got to go on a backpacking excursion to go find myself. Fuck off! I'm 40-something years old. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm trying to do, right? Like, get your ass, whatever you have to do, whether it's a job, whether you want to be an entrepreneur, whether you want to do a cook, it doesn't matter. Don't run away from the pain. You got to lean in the pain.
Completely agree. And that's actually where you really start finding yourself, because especially in this, when you're an entrepreneur, real estate investor, I don't know how it was for you, but specifically for me, I was doing almost all the different kind of strategies that there were out there, because you're also like that discovering, you're like, what do I even like? It's like,
Yep.
and you got to get into it to actually figure out what is it that actually I want to do. And you have to go through these trial periods. And in the end, you start, okay, this is actually, you fumble around, make mistakes, or finish things through like perfectly fine, but then you're just like, this was not really for me. But you start really like eliminating all the different paths that you're like, this is not for me, it's not for me, and actually narrowing down that this is actually what I want, this fits with who I am and what I want in my life. And it really starts actually, if anything, giving you much more direction.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, people have asked me what strategies have I done. I tell them, you need to ask what strategies I haven't done.
Mm-hmm.
You name it, I've done. And through that experimentation, so to speak, I found what fits, what I like. But at the same time, what it comes down to, your goals. I could not continue on the course I was going by simply being a landlord or buying homes. I needed to create active income. Okay, so that active income is a direct infusion of cash into the business to allow me to get to my goals. Other mindset shifts were, because again, there's a lot of ego at play. Oh, I'm not going to do wholesaling. It's like, that's not the way to think about that. What you need to be doing anytime you look at a property is be thinking the wholesale mentality, because you want to make sure there's money on the buy. Because the best property is the one that you take and you close on, and if you have to sell it the next day, you're making money on it. If you're losing money, you've made a bad deal, my friends. So you have to go through the whole, I call it the pipeline, whatever, which is, you look at a property now. So if you're interested in doing a buy and hold, fine, that's fine. But run it through all the different applications. If you have to take this on and your joint venture partner screwed up on you or whatever, now you have to sell it. Are you making money or are you going to take a loss? Or two is you look at this and saying, hey, maybe if I put some lipstick on this, if I put in the market, how well am I going to do? So not only do we have to look at our return on investment, but we have to look at the greatest return on investment, which is a return on time.
Mm-hmm.
So someone can buy an asset and they can invest, let's just say they invest $10,000 into a property. And if they have to sell that property and make $100,000 versus keeping a property where they may make $100,000, but they're going to be, maybe making $50 a month cash flow. Like, does it make sense? So it all has to be in alignment with one's goals.
100%. And that's, yeah, it has to be almost the first thing that you do, because if you don't start organizing yourself also and finding out what it is I want to do, you also kind of squirrel out and go all over the place.
Sure. Absolutely. 100%. 100%. And I've been guilty of that too. So when we streamline what our business looks like, it's very simple. I mean, we have apartment acquisitions, we have flips, and we have new builds. Okay, that is our focus. And And part of our acquisition on that front, like we've now done a couple of pivots as well, is because we want to hold more assets now. So this went from the mindset shift of, oh, how many doors do you have? How many doors do you have? You go to these meetups, and it was like, and part of my expression to yourself and to people listening, there's like a bunch of men whipping down their pants and saying who has what, right?
Yeah.
And here it's like, so there's more pride about how many doors people had. And that's a common question I ask people when I'm speaking on stage. How many in this room have asked people how many doors someone has? Like, that's not the right question to ask.
I
That's
totally agree with you. I always find that also a funny question because it doesn't say anything about you, to be honest. You could be making the worst decisions and having all these doors going into crazy amounts of debt. And the pride is that you have all these doors.
Well, it's like, and like the old joke is, if you want to get someone's autograph that has the most amount of doors, just go to Home Depot and speak to the guy who sells the doors. He has the most doors right there if he has supply, right? That's it. So it's the shift that actually has to happen in one's mindset to understand what true investing is. That's what it comes down to, and this is what I challenge people, and that's what I take pride. I want to challenge people. Is unlike this Trojan horse that maybe on the outside I'm this nice guy, but inside, like, you let me in, and I'm gonna crush what you're thinking, because someone needs that high level of accountability or get them to think outside the box, because it's not going to take them to that next level. It's not going to move the needle, and I don't want to be around people that aren't pushing on the needle.
100%. So, what would you recommend to investors to actually ask other investors? Because it is true. A lot of people always say like it's about the doors. Same thing. I get the same question. And I find that like same thing. Like I find that a very strange question.
Yeah, I think a very simple question to ask someone is what makes an investor successful? That's the right question. It's not like, how do I get doors like you? Well, fuck, dude, just go to Home Depot. That's how you get doors how I do, right? Right. So, I'm tough on this because I just seen too much of it. And I think what happens is in this marketplace, people are looking. There's been a lot of shortcuts taken, which is great. Hey, you know what? Like even myself, we've done well with the speculation in the market and how the market just simply gone crazy. But when it doesn't, it comes back to fundamentals. It's the fundamentals of a good property. It's the bricks and mortar of a property. It's the numbers. You know, people will buy stock. People will buy stocks based on the data. We need to look at the data when we're investing in properties too.
100%. Completely agree. What would you say also getting into another mindset shift? Like what's or even a recent one, or maybe older one, whichever one, like a mindset shift that you had that really impacted your life?
Oh, I've had so many. The mindset shift that really, it was realizing I had to focus on my spirit. That was the major one. That was a major one. Also understanding, the tether from the mindset to spirit. And, like my mentor today said, like, it's like the law of attraction. And, and so I've seen it both ways. I've seen it where I was on top of the world with my vibration levels at such a high level. And it was just bringing so much amazing things. But when I've been at the lowest point of my life, it only brings negativity. And I think what everybody needs to understand is life is a struggle. Life is a struggle. The day we're born brings struggle. It's our first breath. It's a cold temperature. We're not in our mother's womb. We're seeing light for the first time. We're hearing things and that kind of stuff. This is going to continue. Also, what's important, I tell people this too, is everything is an action. So when people say be happy, be in love, be peaceful. No, that's bullshit. It's make peace, make happy, make love. It's all action. And
Mhm.
someone might be sick on there saying, I made love. But I'm just saying, it's action. You want to love someone, you got to continue putting in that work. Because the moment we take a step back, we take it for granted. And when it's taken for granted, that is when we're exposing us to losing it.
Mhm.
So my to answer your question is that I've come to realize is when I take things for granted and I take a step back from it and not take any action, it slips through your fingers.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, yeah, that you say it because I've also realized those things that same thing, you get into these highs and you're just like vibrating so high and things are amazing. And then once things start kind of breaking down, you start really analyzing yourself. You're like, why did I bring that? You know, like what did I do to myself?
Yeah.
Because it is. You start realizing when you get into these levels and you start realizing that really personal development is huge to getting anywhere in life. You really start realizing that it's all you. Like you bring whatever it is that comes to you, and it's just kind of insane because something will happen and I was just like, oh my God, what did I do? Like you really start analyzing yourself. Like I did something to bring that and it's like I need to shift that, you know?
Absolutely, and that's why personal development is so critical. And this is why I push on it like all the time is, I practice gratitude every day. I shouldn't say every day, that's a lie. I missed it this morning. But I like to practice gratitude on a regular basis. Meditation is critical because when you have multiple thoughts that are going on in your mind, you need to quiet the mind and stay focused on your breathing. Nothing is more grounding than your breathing. Um, I talk about meditation, some sort of spirituality. Um, that's important. You have to exercise. Like
Hmm.
today, for example, I'll give you an example is I want to hit the gym today, but something came up because we had a couple of lawyer calls and this kind of stuff, so I couldn't go. So the easy button would say, "Oh, I'm not going to go to the gym today. I'll do it tomorrow." And I said, no, I'm not going to break that commitment to myself. So you know what? I have a treadmill here. You know what? I'm just going to jump on a treadmill for 35 minutes and I'm going to do that. It's too easy. It's too easy to step over the treadmill. It's too easy to go and look for fresh vegetables and this kind of stuff, right? So we have to
Oh,
keep on pushing ourselves. That is what personal development is. It's continue.
mm-hmm.
It's the pursuit to become a better self.
100%. And to add on to what you're saying, it's like having that respect for yourself to be like you're important, because how do you give out your 100% if you yourself are not 100% because you're neglecting your health and you're
Yeah.
neglecting like all these things. It's so important to actually um you know take care of yourself. And also because we'll do it for someone else, which is really funny. We'll someone else will say like, oh, I need this to be done, whatever it is, and you go running, you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna help you out. But then you yourself is like, oh, I need to, for example, go exercise,
Sure.
and you completely let yourself down, and you're just like basically telling yourself you're not important. I'm not important, I don't need to exercise. And
So
it's
why do
just
people?
like,
So why do
pardon?
people do that? Why do people do that then?
Hmm. That's what do you think? I've that in that sense, it's I don't know.
They avoid the pain.
Avoiding the pain, yeah,
They're
that's
avoiding the
true.
pain versus facing the pain.
Mhm. But wouldn't it still be the pain though if you're helping another person?
Oh, it's too easy to help someone else and help yourself.
Yeah,
It's too
yeah,
easy.
that's it's yeah. Or it's because I guess you're like more following, where if you're doing it for yourself, you're kind of like you're being the leader in that sense.
Well, and it feels good to help someone versus helping yourself. There's a sense
Mm-hmm.
of whatever it is, gratitude or whatever. I've done something for someone else, but the best thing you can do for someone else is do something for yourself first. Take care of yourself.
100%. I've always been an advocate of that. It's always been so important to me in that sense, where you talk about, I mean, not talk about, like taking care of yourself. What I said before, right? Like, how do you expect to be? You can never be 100% you if you don't take care of you.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I tell people is that, back in the day, I lived quite the life. I mean, it was amazing parties. We had an amazing 4,000 square foot home. Like it was just, tuxedo parties, bottles of Cristal. It was a high life. And, but I was not lonely. I had a lot of people around me, but I was empty. Um,
Mhm.
but what was fueling all of that, this emptiness, the only way I could fuel it is feeding my ego by being
Mhm.
around people and burning money and all this other stuff. And I had this shift. I had this shift in that what I thought was I was being unselfish by helping other people. I was actually being selfish because what I was doing is I was stroking my ego. So I had to make a shift into becoming selfish to become selfless. Now, I'm not saying selfish to be a dick. I'm saying selfish meaning I'm going to wake up earlier in the morning and I'm going to focus on my personal development. I'm going to focus on my gratitude. I'm going to focus on forgiveness. I'm going to focus on exercise. I'm going to do these things so then
Mhm.
I can be selfless.
100%. Totally agree. And that's where again you can be more of a person and kind of going back to another thing that you're talking about, where this all this helping yourself impacts other people is like how you're talking about your family, right? Like balancing entrepreneur life with the family, that in itself is such a huge juggling act.
Yeah, absolutely. It is.
How has that been for you to find the balance?
I wish I had someone that can explain this to me now. Like, it could explain to me what this question now than what I had when I had my young children and that kind of stuff. My son's turning 18. My daughter is 15 years old, and then I have two stepchildren. And there's no secret. Like, there's no formula. There isn't. You know, you have a commitment to both. If you don't commit to your family, something's going to sink. If you don't commit to your business, something's going to sink. So the only way to navigate this is through one is communication. Communication. See, when I grew up, so I think this is what's also happening to society here, and there's going to be some parents on here that are going to completely disagree, but I don't give a shit. See, when I grew up, I used to play a lot of sports. My dad worked crazy hours because first immigrant coming, immigrant family and this kind of stuff. So he had to work those shifts so I could play the sports I was playing. I can recall my dad maybe coming to a handful of all my games for all my life.
Hmm.
Yet, what happens now? The kids, they go and it becomes more of a picnic. What snacks they're going to have. And it's a whole family there and this kind of stuff. What are we teaching these children? Stop work and you can do these type of things. And then the families are struggling for money. They're broke or whatever it is. But everybody's happy because everybody's there. So I think there has to be this, it's not even a balance. It's a management of priorities is what it comes down to. It comes down to a management of priorities. A great book written by Craig Ballantyne talks about the perfect work week. And in there, it says you take your calendar, and in your calendar, you put in your personal items first. Date night is in there. Dinners with family is in there, and that kind of stuff. Once you have all of those, your gym time's in there. Your personal time's in there. Once that time's in there is when you fill in the gaps with your business stuff. Because what happens right now is no one's putting that personal development stuff in their calendar. No one is putting their date nights in there and that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And what happens is what becomes secondary. Secondary becomes family. I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of that, but I can't turn back the clock. So all I can do in my message here is help those that are struggling with it. Because you don't get the time back.
100%. But at least like that, you learn from it and you move forward from it and you improve, improve it as it is now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, and it is very hard, right? Because especially when you're ramping up your business, for example, like it does consume a lot of your time. And like you said, it is great. It is like you have to have that communication there with family so that at least they understand, or even sometimes they help you kind of pull you out, because sometimes you need that little pull to be like, hey, you forgot about our family time, or like family time isn't getting missed this time, or whatever it
Sure.
is, because you need to have because sometimes I feel like you kind of get sucked into it too, like it does become an obsession, and sometimes you just kind of can't pull yourself out of it, and it's like at least they're there be like, hey, remember this, and you're like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. What's going on, you gotta get back into this.
absolutely. Well, in books like Relentless, books like Winning, in the Mamba mentality and all this stuff, you see how driven high performance individuals are. And I've shared this on before, either my podcast or my videos and this kind of stuff. When you see someone like Michael Jordan getting the NBA championship and they're bawling their eyes out, they're not bawling their eyes out because, look, we did it. They're bawling their eyes out because of the sacrifices they made to get there, the broken relationships they have with people. But they stayed steadfast in their thing. So there's no right or wrong answer, because everybody's going to have an opinion. I can go right now and I could become a billionaire tomorrow, and it's going to say, oh, look at him. He's selfish. He's selfish. He parked everything aside for that. Where someone's going to say, wow, you know what? His parents came here from a different country and he was so poised and he made it happen. Everybody's going to have a fucking opinion. Because, at the end of the day, we judge ourselves on our intentions and we judge others on the results.
100%. Yeah, that's very true. And I mean, it's very important not to really let that affect us. People have their opinions, and it's funny how you notice, even I don't know if you notice this in conversation sometimes, like I'll say like, "Oh, I'm doing this or that." And then even people will take it as a judgment on them, for example. And
Easily.
I was just like, and I feel like you always have to have this caveat in there, like these are my views for me and my like what I want for me. Don't take it as if I think your way of being is like bad or good or whatever. Like it's just like I have these views. Don't think of it being in a sense like that means I see something negative in you or something. Because I notice
Sure.
it's like always taking, I feel like anything that's being said is almost taken as a criticism. Do you ever have those kind of feelings when people
Oh,
you
all
say
the
something?
all the time. Everybody's going to criticize. You know what? But it's again being with like-minded individuals that are rooting for you, not the ones that are working against you. So you get into these rooms where when I tell people I'm going to invest $1 million into my mindset, it's the people saying, "Holy shit! Like, hey, can we support you? How can we support you?"
Mhm.
Versus, how many properties you can buy with that money? It's like, yeah, then go ahead.
Mhm.
Right? It's my purpose, not someone else's purpose. Your purpose is your purpose. It's like me coming on here right now and getting in your face and saying, "How dare you not get a vaccination and this kind of stuff?" It's none of my
Mhm.
business. It's not
Yeah.
my business. You want to get a tattoo on your forehead? Get a tattoo on your forehead. I don't care. Everybody's
Mhm.
always going to have an opinion because that is a mirror of themselves.
Mhm.
Remember that, people. It's a mirror.
100%. And it's funny like that when also even sometimes you catch yourself judging others, and then you're just kind of like, what, why did I do that? Like, what just happened? And then you're like you said, like you start reflecting, because I was just like, why did that even come as like, like, why did I get upset about it or negative about it? And it's just
Sure.
kind of like, I mean, the whole thing is, it is like you're always reflecting on yourself. Like personal development just becomes one of those things that like that, once you realize how pivotal it
Sure.
is just kind of like always reflecting on yourself and be like, why did I do that? Like, why did I think, like, make that comment? Like, it had nothing to do with anything, and, like,
Sure. Well, and the thing is, right, so ego, come back to ego. Ego is excessive attraction to oneself. Okay?
hmm
Um, Ego is a dangerous slope. Now, I'm not saying, I think we all need to have ego. I think there's two ways to look at egos. There's a negative aspect, there's a positive side. It's like stress. There's eustress and there's distress. But there was a study that was done out of Stanford. And what they did was they asked everybody is how they gauge happiness. How do they best gauge happiness? And what do you think their answer was?
how to gauge happiness.
How do they gauge one's happiness, their own happiness?
I have no idea.
Okay, could it be the house, family, finances? What do you think?
Um, for me, I would at least say, like family life, I would say. Like
Family.
it,
Okay.
am I doing the things that I want to do? I guess is how I would think of it.
So the Stanford study came out, and how people gauge their happiness is how they compare themselves to others.
Oh, but I guess that's true. I mean, you are that, yeah, actually that makes sense, although I don't know, that's not very good.
No, it's not good at all. But that's just how we are, right? Like social media is a great example of that. Social media is a weapon of mass destruction. We're using this as a way of providing a resource for individuals. Others are using social media as a weapon, right?
Hmm.
And then it's self-inflicted pain because, oh, look at Becky here. She's out in Cancun and she's doing this, and here I am freezing my ass off in southern Ontario, right? And it
Hmm.
messes it messes with people's minds. So the
Hmm.
best way to change that switch is like, hey, good for her. As much as it's so freaking hard, because you just gotta say it. You gotta force yourself to do it. And that's the thing. Like, I mean, and you see this in real estate investing all the time. Like, who comes on real estate investing? Like, I've done multiple projects. And if I come on, and I've had people actually tell me that they appreciate my vulnerability because I've been on here live and saying, we did this real estate investing deal. Our investors all made money. They're happy. We didn't make a dime. And this is the lessons we learned from it. But most people are
Hmm.
like, oh, look, I got this, and I got this, and I got this. But there's a reason why most don't want to be vulnerable. And there's a layer there that they have to fix. So a lot of our investors that come into fold, they've said to me, because of your post is why we're investing with you.
Hmm.
It's because you're vulnerable. You're a human being.
Hmm.
Our
Yeah,
investors
and
don't
it
lose
really
money.
shows that life isn't perfect, right? Like, I think, especially, as you start growing, people for some reason start having this like image of you of like, oh my God, like things must be so easy for you. And you're like, are you crazy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you see this, right? Like, I mean, what's a journey of an entrepreneur? I said, people may look on the outside saying, oh, look at what he has and this kind of stuff. Well, no, it's like there's this picture they've actually shown of a ballerina in the Russian from the Russian ballet, and you see a lot of grace. You see just like, oh wow, like she's on top of the world. You take off her ballet shoes, look at her toes, look
Oh
at her
my
feet,
God, the pain.
the pain. Like no one like
Mhm.
so. When I joke with people, no one sees the blood flowing from my feet, walking on broken glass uphill and downhill, trying to
Mhm.
move these mountains. Because again, what I said before was the other side of our pain is our purpose. How many people are willing to lean into the pain to get to their purpose? Not many.
Mhm.
Not many. And that's
No, it's.
why that's why I hang out with a select few. Because we're gonna push like hell, and if we need to carry each other on each other's back, we will to get to our purpose.
100%. Yeah, this has been an amazing insight. I have a last question for you.
Sure.
So where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? What are your plans, be it personal or business or both?
Yeah, that's a great question. I I don't know where I see myself tomorrow. Okay. What I can tell you though is I want to impact people. I want to serve people. That's all I want to do. Because I'm a firm believer that the more the more people you serve is ultimately going to dictate your income.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just here to
100%.
push on people. Like I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, the other, Sahas, for example, and I was speaking to someone else today, someone else actually, two people today about this. I've actually had people reach out to me for my posts on Instagram or Facebook or my podcast or my YouTube video. And they've told me that they've done certain things as a result of it. I've had
Mm-hmm.
one person tell me he quit smoking because of my podcast. Never once have I ever spoken to anybody about quitting smoking, but something obviously changed,
Resonating.
resonated, right? So for me, I just want to be able to push on higher levels. What I can tell you is one of the big projects I'm working on is it's a philanthropy project I'm working on, which is very important. And I'm really, really excited about this. And it's not, you know, I have to be careful how I say this because in someone's lens, they may be seeing, oh, this is an anti-feminist movement. It's not. The reality is men right now are suffering. Men have been castrated, especially through COVID, not being able to make decisions. Um, Addictions are through the roof right now. You go to emerging countries, it's not just addictions to and mental health issues, for example, but it's the addictions aren't alcohol based, not just alcohol based, drug based, and so forth. Like I'm going to say something here that's going to catch everybody's surprise. Porn addiction is a major, major issue right now. So what happens with this is there's actually studies now that are actually showing that it's actually called erectile dysfunction due to porn addiction. Porn addiction, erectile dysfunction. What does this fit with real estate investing? What this is showing me is men are hurting. They're looking for happiness in the wrong places. We need to get people back into alignment. We got to get people back in control of their lives. We got to be able to do all these things. So what my goal is with everything I've been through in my life is I want to show inspiration and help people that saying I've been low, so low, where there was moments in my life it would have been easier just to go and buy a shotgun and do what I have to do with it, but I didn't. So I want to be able to help people with that. So that's probably my biggest project actually right now is that. So real estate investing is simply a vehicle for me, but my big project is to help others, and I want to help people that are suffering.
Mhm. That's awesome. That's amazing. And I agree with you. Although I feel like I would see it maybe in a little bit different way, but in the sense of like, it is true. Like, I feel like men are so lost and we put so much focus on women. And I think it's more, for me at least, I've been feeling like, we had this dynamic change, right? Where it's like women started to want to get jobs and become independent, but men weren't really taught, like, what does that mean? Like, how do we now fix together as a family? Now, how are we fixing that dynamic, and like working together in a new, different way? And it's
Well,
just for some reason, it's like men got left behind, and it's like, and, and, and also the thing like be a man, be a man, be a man, and it's just like but don't like and not knowing what that really means, and then you just feel like yeah, I mean for me I feel like it's more like family wise, like it's just like men kind of got lost because it's like we were in a very different dynamic, right? It's like men worked, women were like in the house like nurturing the family. Whereas
mhm.
like now it's like you need to have both, like men and women are both working, men and women are both um needing to understand how to be in the family dynamic too, in a new way of society.
Well,
And
that's it. And like you look at what's happening is etiquette. Etiquette. I look at this, and maybe I'm old school, but how like there's been studies on this that show back in the 70s and 80s, the pounds per square inch on a handshake by a male was a lot more firmer than it is now. How to talk to people. Like there's women that have actually told me when I'm talking to them about some of these clients, they're like, "Thank you, thank you." Like this is what's missing: etiquette, grooming, how to present yourself, how to do public speaking,
mm-hmm,
how to be vulnerable.
mm-hmm.
And so one of my missions now is I'm working with an amazing team, and this is one of our major projects. I'm actually writing a book as well. I already wrote one book. So these are some of the things. So this is going to happen sooner than 5 years. That's for sure.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing your story, and it's always so much fun to chat with you.
Likewise, Deanna. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you everyone. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we see you in the next episode. Bye everyone.
Take care, all.